talk about. If I were to like try to say the main three things that I would focus on in a J22 is the first one would be sailing the boat flat and at a constant angle of heel, somewhere between 5 and 7 degrees. I don't know, Jeff, you sailed these boats for forever. What are your thoughts on sailing the boat flat?
Yeah, because they all say the keel's not real deep, so
right.
Any keel that you can farther down, the better.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you heel on the front,
yeah, like uncomfortably flat. It
right.
feels like sticky and you're slowing down because you lose the feedback from the tiller, right? But that's usually when the boat's going fastest. So just kind of trust that, try it out, and try to keep it a constant angle of heel. The next thing would be constantly playing the jib sheet. Like it's a big jib. We talked about that a little bit yesterday. You sail into a header, you over trim it, help bring the bow down, and then ease it back out, right? Or a buff hits, you ease it out a little bit as the apparent wind goes out for a second, and then trim it back in. Or a lift comes and you ease it out so the bow can come up. It's kind of like a forward rudder up there, right? And the third thing is something that our team talked a lot about at dinner last night is there's really kind of no way to over communicate. Like if you're adjusting something, let the other guys know. If the driver has a weird feel to the stick, like he's got too much helm, then he needs to let the other guys know to try to figure it out, fix it. Maybe it's more backstay, maybe it's hiking harder, maybe there's a bunch of different things. But the more the communication loops are open, the more that everybody can be tuned in together and work as a solid, cohesive team, right? To keep the boat going. I don't know how.
Well, just to tag in here, so there is a lot of books and talks, and we always talking about twist, right? That's great when you are outside of the boat, right? Because you can see the twist. Yeah, I can see. Unfortunately, I have to see your twist quite a bit. Right? great job, Glenn. Great job. Even you had Jackson, great job. So, right, you have to be outside. You need to be on a J27 to see the twist of a J22, right?
Yeah.
You need 5 feet so you can look at it. So one thing that we learned, and this was a great tip that Paul Forrester in Corpus was very insisting on, is especially when you need to deep power, when you get into the upper range, like we saw a little bit of that yesterday, towards the end of the day, where you have to keep the boat flat, to your point, force the boat to be flat. The J22 really likes to ease the sails. So in order to have matching leeches, which you cannot see, have matching luffing. So the two luffs are luffing proportionally the same amount, and the boat flattens down and remains in balance. Does that make sense? Because you can see them. You can see the leech of the main. You can see the leech of the jib. But you cannot see the twist really, like the twist profile. I mean, you can get an idea. The deltas are telling you. So just to your point, when the urge is to get flat and you are in doubt, just don't be afraid of. Just don't burp the main out. If the main goes out, probably the jib has to go out as well and get, remain the self-running balance.
Right.
So you guys, when you're trying to get the boat flat, like yesterday when we had some breeze, are you feathering?
Are you feathering? Is that what the question is?
Yeah.
Yes. I think there's kind of two different styles of sailing. Krog is a geese around here. I notice he sails a lot differently.
Yeah,
He sails kind of with a lot less backstay than we do, and he sails inside the jib a lot to keep the boat flat. We sail with the backstay on really hard when the boat gets overpowered, and hike hard and try to keep the bow down a little bit more. So there's kind of, and they both work, So it's kind of like a dealer's choice in that one, And I think in different wave states, one of those modes is going to be better than the other at times. But we like to sail the boats. The keel's got a long cord length and it's pretty fat. And obviously, like Jeff's point, it's short, but that's kind of a different thing I was going to talk about. But because it's a long cord, and once you get the boat up to speed, when you get up to that right target boat speed or a little higher, your boat's balanced and feeling good, you can sail the boat a little higher, right? Because the flow stays attached a little bit longer. But as soon as the boat hits a bad set of waves or a lull, you have to ease the sails out, both like Rod was talking about, put the bow down and get it going again before you go back into that mode, right? Does that kind of make sense? Yeah. And to speak to Rod's point a little bit about the sails matching, and Willem's probably going to make fun of me for using this word here in a minute, but if I'm trimming the jib on almost any boat, I look at the exit angle of the leech, like the back 6 inches of the leech, and I try to, from the bottom of the jib up, looking up the leach and looking at the draft of the main looking up, I want the exit angle of the jib to be pointing as a tangent all the way up. So if that's pointing there, that means the leaches are going to be pretty matched, right? So like the bottom's pointing here and the top's twisting open as the main gets deeper vertically. And so that's usually a good thing. And Rod mentions if you ease the main, you need to ease the jib too, because the boat's, like we said, the jib is like a forward rudder. And if you let the main out, you're going to load the front of the boat wants to go down, right? And that's not going to help you depower usually, right? So playing the sails in tandem together is really big. Glenn does a really good job of sailing the boat really flat and also plays the main really well. We were talking about with the backstay changes and stuff like that. I mean, what were you doing? You were going pretty well today. What were you focusing on today?
I think more sheet in and out.
Yeah.
For sure today.
Yeah.
You know, we slowed, main goes out.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not 5 inches, it's 2 inches.
Yeah. Yeah.
But these sails close pretty quickly, right?
Yeah.
So you can over trim them. When the breeze is on, that's fine. The backstay can open that. But we concentrated more on a little more dynamic in and out.
And we were talking about sailing the boat flat. I know you do a really good job about that. You let us know when we need to be flatter. But does it feel, what does it feel like when the boat gets flat, properly flat? Does the helm kind of feel funny, or does it feel good? Or
Well, you're matching that with your speedo, but the boat feels better.
yeah,
At an optimum feeling.
yeah,
And you're right. Inside of 5, it gets a bit squirrely, right?
okay, yeah,
8 to 5 is kind of what we target.
gotcha.
There is one point, I think to your point, I learned this morning or yesterday that there are some J24 sailors that are transitioning to the 22. The 24 in some occasions, especially with very small chop or flat water, can hang in there very well, feathering in. Like you can have all the scallops, almost all the scallops in, but you're having a general, right? That once you go and the body's heavier and some other elements come into play, the 22 struggles a little bit if you stay too long on that one. So the mode works, like as long as when Jackson was saying, what Jeff was mentioning, the heel is fairly short. So every time you heel the boat, the vertical distance that, your heel gets shorter. That's essentially what happens. So you can get a little bit of feathering in fresh breeze, flat spots. As soon as you come in on the water, just start, I probably go better with backstay on and just load the boat a little bit more off and just play the sheets, right?
Do you ever go laser style, where you kind of bring the boat to windward?
The
Like,
heeling to windward?
yeah.
I've never.
Upwind?
I've never
Like,
tried
that laser style, can you just climb?
I've never tried it.
Never tried it?
J22, but my understanding, the boat is pretty round,
Right.
pretty spoony shaped, and if you heel it to weather, it's going to want to turn pretty quickly,
Okay.
I believe.
Okay.
Because steering with your weight is a huge thing in these boats, right? Because it's so spoony, and so as soon as you feel one way or the other, the boat wants to turn.
Right.
James, your team's always going fast. Like, what are the things you were focusing on today? I mean, it seems like you sail pretty flat. How do you get there? Which style of the
Yeah,
things
so
do you
I mean,
choose?
the main thing is, we use other boats as a, basically, are we too high, are we too low, are we faster, are we slower? Because we tend to point a little higher than a lot of, we might get strapped in a little too tight. When the boat feels slow, totally agree, ease out the jib a little bit, like an inch or something, like nothing major. And then, of course, pop the main sheet open a little bit, get that nice open, get the tail flying at the very top, get my speed up, and then it's like, okay, now we're at full speed, let's crank in just a click or two. And I mean, it's real tiny, maybe an inch, half inch, it's not too much.
So that's an interesting point too about the main sheet. Pinhead main on the J22. Once you're up to speed, especially in flatter water, for sure, you're able to take the telltale from flying 100% to just flick it just so it shuts down, right? As long as you're in a good lane and you're not hitting waves and things like that, right? And so just so it shuts down, right? Which is kind of a weird way to do it. Not many other boats kind of sail like that, but I think focusing on that, like it's flowing 100, all right, I'm gonna literally 1, maybe 2 clicks on the ratchet, and then it shuts down. It's like, all right, that might be the ticket, right? Is that how? Is there drivers that think about it differently? That's kind of no. Okay.
I always find it never feels good when you shut it down. Like I always want flow on it. Every time we shut it down, You can't live there long.
Right, you have to have a
That's
good
the
light.
key.
It's a
That's the
very,
key. It's
very
like you
narrow
find your spot, stay there, and all of a sudden the wheels are gonna come off.
Yes.
So right the time you watch it, it's gonna tell you, oh, we're about to hit it, and then you are proactive before you go into a complete death.
And you gotta, listening, Luther Carpenter, Olympic coach for the U.S., is a very successful guy. He was, when I was growing up, he coached me a few times, and he was like, he would always say, listen to your ass cheeks, because your ass cheeks are connected to the boat, right? And if the boat, you start getting too flat or you start getting slow, you feel it through where you're connected to the boat. So feeling the boat through your butt is the way he did.
Just one
Listen
thing.
to your ass cheeks.
Just one thing I wanted to mention is when we went out there before the first race, we were going upwind, and I was explaining to him that when you lean the boat over, it makes it want to go up, and when you get it too flat, it wants to go down. I let go of the tiller and let the team kind of play with that, and we did that for what, 3 minutes or something.
I noticed you have a fair bit of windward heel on the downwinds on your I noticed it particularly on your boat.
These guys?
Yeah.
We're also UK. We're not North or Corner.
Okay.
So we also have different sails. I want to
Now,
say that.
now, what are your thoughts? What's everyone's thoughts on windward heel on the downwinds?
Bring up your truck.
I think when there's enough wind to do it, it rotates the chute out from the main.
Yeah. What's the crossover you think that there's enough wind being 10?
When the boom
Yeah.
is not coming in, I think.
Yeah. And I think a really kind of the key is in any given condition, if the communication from the driver being what the helm feels like. Like if you're heeling the windward and he's pushing the tiller all the time, that's not good. Or heeling the leeward and he's pulling it all the time, that's not good. But usually around 10 knots is where you can start heeling the weather, and the boat likes to carve down. But ideally, you might want a little weather helm in really light air to help keep
But
the kite
it's mostly
flow.
so that the
But-
driver doesn't need to.
Pretty much. In the light air, I think barely any windward helm, right? The boat's slightly trying to turn up and help keep the kite full, right? Gravity, all that stuff. And then as soon as it gets pressured enough where you can start bringing the pole back, you start testing whether or not you can heel the weather and what does it feel like on the helm. And then you want a little bit of leeward helm, right? Just trying to keep the boat from rounding down a little bit too much. I think those are the crossovers, And I think it's also in any given boat, I think it's really good to determine in the condition you're in whether the boat is looking for power or whether it's overpowered, right? That's usually the crossover for a lot of different things, like the heel, like you were talking about, right? So when you're overpowered, you're going to easily be in that heeling the weather mode, right?
Yeah, well, if the boom is not coming in, like gravity, that we already hit it. So if the wind is strong enough just to keep the boom out there, we're already in, and like Jackson said, it's not the rail in the water, right? It's just enough until, we know probably it's not fighting, but just enough to project, and on every little wave the boat wants to carve down. And try to keep it constant, avoid the,
Yeah.
Yeah, so I sailed ACCs a while back. I think it was like 2022, I think it was last year, and I got beat so bad by a guy that was weather sheeting. I was wondering if you had any opinions on that.
oh, like an in-hauling.
Yeah, like in all like the 70s Vipers, 105s. I mean, we do it in all those boats. Is it doable in the 22s? And what's your opinion?
The J22 sheeting angle, the sheeting angles are really important about that.
Yeah.
The sheeting angle on J22 is fairly narrow. It's not pretty far out there. Like the Viper, the sheeting angle is like 12 degrees. Most boats, 7.5 is a comfortable number. But I think the J22 might be inside of that. I don't know. It's probably 6 or something. And the jib's really round already. And we talked about the leads yesterday and how we leave them forward and play the sheet.
Yeah.
So in hauling to me would be kind of dangerous. You would have to. It would probably create the bottom quarter of the leech turning inside of the main there.
Yeah.
And I think it was probably a bad thing, but it's maybe not a thing. I haven't really experimented with it too much, to be that honest with you. So.
It's direct. There is a direct response. It happens on the J70 on the same cell maker, depending on the generation of jigs that you have, where the clue is high enough or not.
Right.
There's no way I can think of right now with our North jib that we can, in order for us to in-haul, that we'll have to use the sheet so much that we will make what Jackson said, just like a negative.
It's already pretty round.
Yeah.
So I would think that it would work, but I haven't done a lot of experimenting with that. But
Sag and force days.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah. The more you load the jib up in hauling, I think it will, right? The more the more you load the jib up, the more head stay sag you get. And the head stay sag, you're already pretty saggy on these ones, right? Real quick, I just wanted to talk about, well, you have different sails, but how your jib halyard tension, where do you sail around with that?
Yeah, and the slide stuff, we're definitely scalloped.
How much?
Just enough that I can still drive the boat. It's not bad.
Well, I mean, you got a wrinkle coming off each snap,
Yes.
and how far back is the wrinkle there?
Not very far. I mean, I don't want it to be a straight edge, but I want it to just start to have just enough.
Yeah. Will, and what would you say our jib halyard is like? Almost in all conditions, it seems like we have a certain setting.
The length of the scallop, I mean,
Oh, the wrinkle coming on.
right? I mean, it's significant.
Yeah, it's like 2 inches or more. huh?
4,
Yeah.
Yeah.
4 to
Yeah,
5.
it's about us. We're about 4 or 5.
What was that?
All the time, or just like today?
Most of the time.
Yeah.
You're talking about the distance back from over the scallop.
Yeah, the wrinkle that comes off the snaps or the hanks or whatever. Well, if you tighten it completely, the wrinkles go away,
Right.
right? So the more ease it is, the more they come back. And we found a really nice way of just having it like 2 to 4 inches back, and kind of more ease than you would think. And a really good way to control that is, or the way I like to do it, is if you're sailing upwind and you don't get the jib up all the way around the leeward mark, you can cleat the jib. It's go around the winch once or twice, right? And you cleat it. You take the halyard and you wrap it around the top part of the drum above it, and you winch it up, right? Or if you need to let it down, like it got too tight, you load it up on the winch, and then you have someone lean in and just open the cam cleat, and then you can ease it back down and close the cam cleat again. The winch comes in really handy for that maneuver. So it's something to kind of think about if you ever run into that scenario. Yeah.
Do you play with your halyard tension control, or is it pretty consistent today?
It's consistent to each race, I think, you know. And we have a good mark for when we go around the leeward mark, we pull it back to that mark, you know. And when you're going downwind and the kite's still up, it's pretty easy to get it there because the rig's getting pulled forward.
Well, I think we did burp it going up.
We don't really get to that. I just want to get it in the ballpark and then kind of leave it there.
I wanted more power. I asked for it. If it was a little too tight, I wanted more scallop.
Yeah, let's start fielding questions.
I have another one. Sailing in dirty air that you just can't get out of, whether it's off the line, you don't have a lane, or you're on the lay line and it's not really a place to tack.
Yeah.
Like in terms of sail adjustment, you know you're in dirty air. Of course, you don't want to be there. But what can you do? Are you easing things? Are you what's the playbook there?
So that's a really good question, and that's something that, like, in certain teams I've been in, we actually practice sailing in bad air. Like, you have to go one way, and I think that's a really good thing to practice. And the things that we learn from those practices are you obviously need to power the boat up, right? So being soft or on the backstay, trying to power the boat up. Another really good one that was shocking to me was that something that not many people think about is if you're sailing in a bad lane, someone leans in and burps the outhaul a little bit and powers the whole bottom part of the main up, right? It creates a little bit, you're pretty much sailing in a header and a lull when you're sailing in bad air, right? So if you can create a little bit more of a turn in the main of the leech to the main and power the bottom of the main up, it helps with that a lot, right? So softer on the backstay, still trying to stay at a constant angle of heel, burping the outhaul, and obviously looking for what the quickest exit is. If it's, you know, sometimes you don't have to tack. You can foot off and then come back up and out of the bad air, or if you're like directly behind somebody, you can go into high mode and try to get out of it this way as they sail normally, and then put the bow back down.
Well, and that's it, right? Like going into high mode means you're not getting as much, not necessarily getting as much power, so that's why
You got to power the boat up. You got to do whatever you can to power the boat up. For sure.
paddle.
Trying to stay mentally tough. It can cost you 5 lengths or 15 lengths, and how much you lose it. So.
Yeah.
You gotta understand, you're gonna lose that guy.
Yeah.
So just like on that though, like so we came around the market, it was just like a parade that's like second going into the second beat, and it was just a parade. Like, so where's that point where it's like, why don't we just do 2 tacks and get clear air versus that? Like, is there?
That's a situational thing, you know. It's pretty hard to answer that one, in my opinion. I don't know, Will, have you got an answer for that?
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, if you have the breeze, there's 2 gates, and one's going to be upwind of the other. So sometimes you think, okay, this is more upwind, but you have to look at those kites, right? If there's 15, 20, maybe in a J70, there's 70 kites coming down. You may want to go to the wrong gate to put yourself on the lifted tack for a long period of time. You go around the correct gate, let's say the wind goes right, you go around a left turn, which is usually good, but if you can't tack onto the new lifted tack, it's very expensive. The other guy went around the wrong gate, was lifted for 7 minutes, got clear of all the kites, tacked, probably by then the wind went to the left, and now he's ahead of you. So I wouldn't be afraid of double tacking. Like today we rounded quite a bit ahead of James. He was to leeward of us. We were looking great. I thought we were gaining, and all of a sudden, it went from 240 to 217, and I was like, well, he's right with us now. We need to tack, and we tacked and had a terrible heading for a bit, and we just barely crossed him, and then you're comfortable again, you know. But if we would have waited another minute, he would have been ahead of us.
And I think if you know you got to go straight in a line like that too, especially in boats, in every boat, but especially in boats that like to sail high, like the J22 does. It's all mostly about getting the flow and having height. That kind of thing happens well before you round the mark, right? Because 100% of the time, I'd rather round a boat length behind a boat than right on them. Because if you're right on them, you're going to get all the turbulence from coming off their sails. But if you're boat length behind, you can live there a lot longer, right? You're also maybe you can put it in the high mode and get away from them a little bit, right?
Don't oversteer, you know, all those kites coming by, they're going to disrupt the jib, and the smoother you can be with your weight and your steering is going to make a big difference.
Do you have any more questions about today, or just in general? Yeah.
I need to sail fast downwind. And I get stuck in between that low mode and high mode. And today, does anybody else feel like you end up going into high mode, then you can go into low mode, and the pressure, you come back, I mean, are you snaking between both? Or do you stay in one and take it the whole way?
No, you're definitely transitioning, I think, you know, as the lull, you're heading up a little bit, right? And that goes back to the communication from the trimmer, how much pressure they have to the driver, right? And the driver talking about how much helm they have and that kind of thing. You know, I think you're always talking about up one or down one or things like that. Or are you talking about transition between the like pull back mode and the pull
I was
forward?
telling him I'm going down a half a degree, I'm coming up 1 degree.
Yeah, but I think it's the trimmer's boat downwind. He's driving the boat, right? So the trimmer's communicating how much pressure is in the kite, right? And so the pressure is like a constant, the right amount of pressure is kind of hard to describe. You have to create a given condition.
The person flying the kite can feel it sooner.
Absolutely,
than the person
absolutely.
driving.
They're going to feel the pressure, and they're going to say, "Oh, I got the pressure. Come down 1 or 2," right? To maintain about the same amount of pressure in the sheet, but the boat sails different angles. Is that yeah?
Ideally with the speedo.
Yeah. Speedos help speed up. Yeah. It's like belt suspenders that feel and speedo. Is there any specific topic that anybody wants to talk about?
Jackson, I think what I noticed going downwind, especially yesterday, was there's just enough current that, you know, we love to go that really low soak.
Right, y'all do that really well.
And that yesterday, I think we were getting set enough that we actually had to change boat balance a little bit because I felt like I was pushing the tiller away downwind a lot more than I usually do. Because, you know, we just getting set enough that, hey, I need to turn up a little bit.
Yeah, so you're talking about on the port?
Yeah.
It's going left to right, looking downwind, so you're getting an apparent wind decrease.
Right, right. And so I kept feeling, okay, guys, I know we like soak mode, but we got to step in because I'm having to push too hard to keep my same course because the current's setting me.
Helm was too much.
Yeah. Current's setting me from west to east.
And it wasn't so much a heading change as it was me stepping into the boat and easing up on that tiller a little bit, right? Leveling the boat up a little
bit. The boat. Yeah, so that goes back to the communication, I think, you know, like you realized something was wrong, communicated, and the guys were like, all right, let's do something. So I really think the communication thing should never get good enough.
Did you soak most of the day today, or was
No. Yeah, I soaked, but that was a whole different meaning of soak. I sucked, and then we soaked. No, you can't in that stuff. There was times that, you know, if there was a little bit of puff in, then we could soak, but then you're right back up to probably flatter, and then you know, just watching. There's a few puffs out there that you could work down a little bit, but not not a lot. Yeah, yesterday you could. Sorry. Yesterday you could, but today was definitely not one of those days. Especially, the first leg, it was just a reach back. I mean, that was just a lineup, and everybody just followed the leader.
All right, well, if you don't have any more questions, my beard just got empty. So
I'm on getting another one.
Oh, no.